to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
Hi, this is your host. Thank you for joining me for this hour of This Week in Marketing. This week we're going to be talking about cannabis marketing. It's a topic that is on the minds of many in California and in San Diego especially, with our laws in regard to cannabis changing on January 1, and so we'll get into a discussion on that here shortly. Before we do that, I want to make sure everyone is aware of our first ever holiday listener contest for the podcast. By listening to our podcast dating back to January 1 of last year and contributing relevant comments to the posts, you will be entered in a drawing to win one of two prizes. One is the opportunity to host your own podcast here at WS Radio. The other option is to win a free pass to the next Art of Marketing conference coming in spring of 2018. So if you go onto our website and find the podcast titled "Why Should I Podcast?" you can learn all about our first ever podcast listener contest, and all those listens and comments must be contributed by the end of the year in order to be eligible, and you must be an AMA member in order to be eligible. So please check that out and take advantage. So we're going to have two guests here this morning. I'm going to introduce the first of them now. She's a longtime friend of our chapter. Her name is Kendra Losi with Moda Marketing. And good morning, Kendra.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me be here today.
So, Kendra, before we dive into the topic du jour, help our listeners understand kind of what your background is and what your connection is to cannabis marketing.
Absolutely. So my background is marketing for higher education and CRM type companies. And then I moved into starting my own business a year ago, and my first client were some friends of mine that owned an online cannabis dispensary. So I started learning the space and was really excited to jump right in.
Dove right in.
Yep.
It is. By the way, my associate Sam Wheeler is here today. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning.
It is common practice to bring samples for the hosts of the show. I want to see if that practice has been followed this week.
Unfortunately, no.
No. Okay.
Next time.
Well, all right.
Next time.
So sad faces all around. So Kendra, let's start by helping our listeners understand, like once and for all, what about the law is changing on January 1?
So on January 1, the law, Prop 64, is going into effect where it's not just, you don't need a medical card anymore to access and purchase cannabis. You have to be over 21, so it actually becomes more general adult use here in California.
Okay. So we're expecting to see kind of a lot changing in the marketplace, right? But there still is this federal law issue, correct? How does explain to our listeners kind of the difference between state law and federal law as of January 1?
So as of January 1, the law that goes into effect is for California only in terms of adult use. So that means that cannabis cannot be sold across state lines. That means that the cannabis that's produced in California needs to stay in California. And then it changes in terms of access. It changes in terms of the federal laws putting a lot into place in terms of tracking. They're calling it from seed to sale. So they're tracking the seeds that are starting to be grown, produced, and then tracking those all the way through to the sale, which means it has a big implication in terms of the distribution and supply chain as far as all of those different tracking components and the branding components and even just like the packaging components in terms of what's each product has, where it's located from, and all of those pieces. And that's just from the actual back end to get it to the stores or dispensaries. And then from a marketing standpoint, there's a lot of different challenges that come into effect as well when you're talking about the state versus federal government.
Mm-hmm. Is there still a chance of federal enforcement of its laws concerning the legality of cannabis
There is.
after January 1?
Yeah, there is, in terms of, whether what the Attorney General and Jeff Sessions is deciding to do, and the federal government can come in and change the laws. There is some wariness around that and those overall federal laws being put into place. A lot of what people are saying now is that it's almost too far. It's going too far with so many states allowing medical use, and then Canada actually starts adult use in July. And so I know Canada's not part of the U.S., but it's close.
Just don't tell them that. They hate hearing anything like that.
I know, but what I'm saying is that there's a lot of momentum moving forward in terms of cannabis use and making that legal. There's a lot more information coming out in terms of where the current perceptions of, like, the stoner perceptions and what it can do as a gateway drug. There's a lot of information coming out around how those perceptions were created. And now a lot of us in the marketing space for cannabis are working on helping change those perceptions to more of a health and wellness type focus. There's a lot of research that's starting in terms of with vets to help with PTSD and pain. But up until now, because of its classification as a Schedule I drug, you haven't been able to really get access to that information or have those research studies conducted.
So let's talk some more about kind of the changing attitudes towards cannabis, and kind of where the previously prevailing attitudes came from, right? Like what was the messaging around cannabis that we're trying to overcome now?
So I think that when you think of cannabis and you think, you typically think of stoners, right? You think of people hanging out, like the ads and the commercials and the perceptions of the 80s with "this is your brain on drugs," right? There's the perception of people who are using cannabis are sitting in some, their parents' basement, watching TV, eating chips, and not really going anywhere for that day or for their life.
Mm-hmm. And obviously the just say no and the whole gateway drug idea. That is gradually and perhaps it's accelerating the way that we're getting away from kind of those ideas.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
And there's a lot of, and there hasn't been, like I said, there hasn't been the ability to do the studies, but there's countries like Israel that are doing a lot when it comes to research. There's a new study that they're starting about the impact of being able to use cannabis to help treat asthma, for example. Mm-hmm. And I know that a lot of people, I think myself and Ronnie both use it anecdotally to help with things like asthma, but I think that actually having the research and scientific studies behind it will help a lot from that legitimacy and that perception.
Yeah. So you just mentioned Ronnie, so that gives me an excuse to introduce our second guest today. She is Ronnie Stetter, who operates Righteous Relations, which is a communications agency for cannabis brands. Good morning, Ronnie.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for joining us. So we were just talking about kind of the changing, not only the changing law, but the changing attitudes towards cannabis. That's kind of taking place, getting away from, at least on a state-to-state basis, the messaging around cannabis being a gateway drug and being so dangerous versus maybe a product that's more in the wellness space. Why don't you talk a little bit about your experience there?
Yeah, I think really what most people are starting to understand is that everybody knows somebody who uses cannabis, whether it's for fun on the weekends or for a wellness aspect. There's people who are doctors and lawyers, politicians who are cannabis users. And in addition to that, I was a competitive athlete who became injured, and cannabis is what got me into the gym. So a lot of the stereotypes about the way the effects, will have an effect on the user just were wrong. The laziness, the sedated. Yes, you can get those qualities with cannabis, but more people are using it to get active, to be successful at their jobs. And to do things that people really never thought was possible on cannabis. So that's the cool part.
Okay. So January 1, let's start by talking about availability, maybe, right? So today you can find medical marijuana in these dispensaries, right? So what will the availability of adult use cannabis look like on January 1?
So it's mostly up to the municipality, like the city or the county, to decide how many stores there's going to be, if they're going to allow edible manufacturing or oils. or even, large cultivation or small cultivation sites. So San Diego is actually pretty far ahead. We used to be kind of the worst city at cannabis regulation, and now we have the most. And seems like we are going to have some stores open 21 and up on January 1st or 2nd.
Okay. And when you say San Diego, is that city of San Diego, county of San Diego?
City limits. So the county actually has banned commercial cannabis of any kind. So if you think about that, it's a really big area where, people in Alpine, they're going to have to drive all the way into the city limits, maybe not downtown, but pretty far in to get cannabis.
Okay. So San Diego County will not allow any cultivation or processing or distribution, right, or retail, right, in unincorporated areas.
They've got a couple sites that were approved previously before this happened, and they've been given an order to shut down in 5 years.
Wow.
So they're advocating right now to just change that from the get-go so they don't have to close down, but they do have some time.
Okay.
And that's something that's actually interesting about the law is that it's actually being enforced county by county. So there's some counties that are trying to say that their constituents voted against it, and so they're looking to not bring it on at all in that area. I think Bakersfield and some of the areas in the Central Valley.
Yeah. And so obviously it's city by city, right? So Coronado, Carlsbad, various incorporated places are going to have their own regulations and laws to enforce.
Yeah, more likely not at all. I don't think Coronado will open up to it for some time.
I think they voted it down. Okay, so that's the end of our first segment. We'll continue the conversation after the break.
A podcast or radio show on WS Radio is a great way to create content marketing. Turn prospects into customers into raving fans. Contact Wade at WSRadio.com or call 866-WS-RADIO.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, CEO and founder of VinVillage.com and the Wine and Dine Show on Vin Village Radio. Do you have a wine, event, product, or service to promote? Then contact VinVillage.com to reach thousands of wine lovers across the country. VinVillage connects like-minded wine enthusiasts with unique and exclusive wines, events, products, and services. To learn more, contact us on VinVillage.com. VinVillage is where wine lovers connect.
I raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children.
After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The World Link program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
One person has the power to change the world, impact millions of lives, and leave a legacy for lifetimes to come. That person is you. In the New York Times bestseller, What is Your What? Steve Olsher, award-winning author and founder of the Reinvention Workshop, reveals his proven process that has helped thousands of men and women discover, share, and monetize the one thing they were born to do. Grab your free copy now at www.whatisyourwhat.com/free. That's www.whatisyourwhat.com/free.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
You take your smartphone almost everywhere you go. Now WSRadio.com can be there too. Search WS Radio in the Play Store for your Android devices or iTunes for Apple and download the WS Radio application. WSRadio.com on your phone and in your ear everywhere you go. Download the WS Radio application. Do it now. It's very easy. WSRadio.com.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
Welcome back. Here in the studio with me talking about cannabis marketing are Kendra Losi of Moda Marketing and Ronnie Stetter of Righteous Relations. So, guys, when we left off, we were kind of talking about enforcement differences across the county and elsewhere, just in terms of distribution and processing and retailing. Is there anything else we want to cover there? Anything about possession, for example?
So if you're 21, you can possess cannabis. I think that's already even in effect. You don't even have to wait till January. Where you get it is the hard part, and that's what everybody's scrambling to figure out. How many dispensaries there are going to be, because most people are probably still getting it from the black market or their friend who has a medical card.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. So possession is legal, but obviously, where it's being sold is what's going to change here January 1. All right. So we talked earlier in the show about kind of not only changing laws but changing attitudes. So I want to talk a little bit about how the cannabis industry is kind of participating in that process, right? How are growers and distributors and processors, retailers, how are they kind of driving the conversation about cannabis? Kendra, you want to take that?
Yeah, in terms of it's starting with there's a lot of different parts to that, but overall it's starting with even just the vernacular and how the word choice. So it's not necessarily, people are preferring cannabis versus marijuana versus weed versus pot versus ganja versus any of the other 425 names that you can think of, or 420 names you can think of. And so it's starting with that type of change. And for example, with the new law, it's being referred to as adult use, not recreation, and part of that is all trying to move away from the stoner image and that traditional reefer madness, half-baked kind of imagery and stereotypes of people who use cannabis.
I guess one of my questions around that would be: is everyone in the industry on board with this, right? Or do you see there being some mavericks who just are not willing to let weed and Cheech and Chong go just yet?
I think for everyone, for the most part, wants it to move out of the shadows, because for a long time it just hasn't been that way. Like I said, it's like a lot of diverse people. So that stereotype, while it was funny at times, never really applied to everybody. So I think we're just seeing a lot of new demographics emerging, that now that it's legal, a little bit more socially accepted, people hear about the wellness aspects. Maybe they don't know, but the infrequent user is a huge growing demographic. So there's always new people coming into the cannabis space. Every time we're at an event, it's always new people. So I feel like that stereotype really never applied. It was just applied to us.
Mm-hmm. Now, and then you guys were just at, or I don't know if you were both there, right? But there was just a big convention out in Las Vegas, right? So what did you see there that kind of informed, what you're thinking about the industry right now?
You're referring to the Marijuana Business Conference in Nevada, and there were about 16,000 people who were there, and there were primarily suits, honestly. There was a lot of suits and very professional, and for me, I'm dating myself a little bit, but it reminded me very much of the pre.com, like as people were starting to get funding and there were parties and people were really, giant booths and trying to prove their value, where their place is, what their offering is, what their business is, and all of these unique business ideas and from cultivation. And it was a fascinating conference because there was a big emphasis on cultivation and then a little emphasis on business, but you could see that everyone was very, very serious about their business, and there wasn't any, perceptions of the traditional stoner or slacker or any of those negative stereotypes that you see there. I didn't see any of that at all.
Yeah, the events are very swanky now. I have a side business working for a print magazine that's launching, and we actually threw a big Las Vegas party, and it was just, a swanky affair, trying to make it very classy, trying to make it a normal, thing that you would want to do on a work conference. So the perception, like once you get to one of those big shows, you really see how much the industry has changed and the type of people that are playing.
Yeah, and of course it's all about funding right now, right? And so there's a lot of money kind of sloshing around out there looking for these profitable opportunities, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think it's trying to also find the right, there's business people who have great ideas that are looking for investors, and there's investors in some instances that are looking for a place to put their money for growth. I wouldn't say there's money raining from the sky, though.
No, they're very picky with it, especially if your business touches the plant in any way. You see a lot of software companies and more ancillary things getting funded because they're not typically technically illegal. So that's an issue for a lot of people too.
Okay, and then so you want to talk a little bit more about the publication that you're working on?
Sure. Yeah. So we're
ahead.
starting a print magazine. It's actually really popular in Denver, Colorado, and it's now expanding into 60 markets in the U.S. And hopefully Canada as well. So it's called Sensi Mag. We're doing a San Diego magazine. We're actually printing in January, and we'll be throwing a huge party, somewhere after that where people can come and really experience what that cannabis culture is like in a not intimidating atmosphere, that relates to San Diego and our community.
And I had one other question regarding the conference, right? Is Nevada one of those states where cannabis is legal? Okay, so it would have been a real shame to have that conference in a place where cannabis isn't even legal.
You say that, but I was talking to a friend, and he was saying that he was going to one of the parties was thrown by High Times magazine, or High Times, and he had a vape pen on him, and they took it away from him before he went into the party.
Wow.
That's bogus.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nevada's really far along. They did better than us, which is kind of embarrassing. I always kind of hoped that California would be the pioneer, but Nevada started, their adult use sales in July.
Okay.
And they've got 24-hour dispensary, drive-through dispensary. Like, you can just walk right in and get some of the best product right when you get to Vegas. So it's a cool tourist experience for them, and that's what we could be doing here.
Yeah, and you mentioned High Times. Like it feels like they really played a long game here, right? Like, they've been around forever.
They just got bought by big investors. So,
did they?
Yep.
Okay, all right. So it wasn't just right place, right time. They've been at it for a long time. Okay, so I want to talk now then about kind of what retail sales of cannabis are gonna look like, right, for adult use. When people go into dispensaries as customers, what will they see? What will the packaging be like? What products will they see? What will the sales for those products look like? Can you guys talk a little bit about that?
I think it depends, first of all, on what dispensary you go into, because each one has its own branding and its own feel, right? But at the same time, I don't know, for people that haven't been in one, there's usually a bud tender who can help you guide through if it's your first time there, or if you're relatively new, that can help guide and recommend different purchases and different options. But there's many more products than you can even imagine. We were just talking before about topical balms to help with aches and pains, and there's it's not just the flowers anymore or the buds, it's actually oils and edibles and tonics and infused water and drinks and you name it.
Yeah, so it's been exciting just seeing the dispensary scene grow, because when I first got my medical marijuana recommendation, I think I was 18. I was like fresh, and that was probably it was a long time ago. So everything was still in a plastic bag kind of situation, and now if you look at the packaging, that we have gone to now, and after January 1st, all the packaging is going to need to be child-proof, compliant with the new laws. So really looking like, a drugstore kind of when you walk into the dispensary sometimes, depending on what kind of brands they're carrying. Really fancy chocolate bars, like just really fancy looking packaging, stuff that looks like, a medicine or a prescription type of product, which I think shows the efficacy of it for sure. But one of the things I think is interesting, it's going to be changing. You're not going to be allowed to make any health claims on any of the packaging anymore. So particularly for an edible, sometimes they'll say, oh, it'll help you go to sleep. It's like a pain relieving thing. So none of that's going to be allowed to be said anymore. Some of the marketing language that people are switching to is time of use. So best time of use, nighttime. So without telling you that it's going to help you fall asleep, they're kind of alluding to that. So seeing some more creative copy and descriptions of the products to help people figure out if it's going to be right for them.
Is that the same on the web as well, than just on the packaging, like in the way that they market online?
Right. So yeah, they're really not supposed to be. You can really subtly allude to just the type of lifestyle I think that you want the person to identify with, but you're really not supposed to be saying that this product is going to treat this symptom.
And it has to be consistent all the way across. So your advertising has to reflect what's on your website, has to reflect any other type of information that you're providing.
And who enforces this? Because it's probably not on a federal level enforcement.
The BCC, so the Bureau of Cannabis Control, is the California state agency that's now running all this, and they work with other agencies to pretty much control everything that's in this law.
Interesting. So are we seeing also like the rise of sort of packaging companies and that type of B2B companies, or are we seeing current companies that do other packaging for other products jump into the cannabis space?
I've heard both. I have a graphic designer friend who does really nice packaging for vape pens, and she'll do like recycled paper, and she'll do them with a leaf design, and they all look very unique. And she said that some of the printers that she'd worked with at other jobs wouldn't work with her because they didn't want to touch the cannabis product. So sometimes yes, other times it seems like it might be better to just be specialized in the cannabis industry because it's very niche. You'll have business, and people aren't going to get mad at you if you deal with cannabis.
It's always a question, too, because, like, for example, email vendors. There was a very popular email cannabis list that just got shut down by MailChimp because it violated the federal laws. So when I was helping one of my clients, I was literally calling or emailing different email vendors to figure out which ones would allow cannabis and which ones wouldn't.
Okay, we'll be right back after the break.
Securing Our eCity Foundation is a nonprofit organization focused on cybersecurity awareness and education. Formed in 2011, their mission is to enable every San Diegan to live, work, and play safely in the cyber world. For more information, visit securingourecity.org or call 619-630-2444. securingourecity.org, 619-630-2444. securingourecity.org.
Has your business been appified? Are you tired of doing marketing that doesn't deliver results? Mobile apps build loyalty and quality retention. Your app from UPG Mobile puts your business on their mind and at their fingertips. UPG Mobile will give you a custom app highlighting how you are unique, targeting your message, and improving your open rates. Appify your business and amplify your presence with your customers at upgmobilemarketinggroup.com.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
Kenja Dixon was crowned the #1 sales executive through hard work, deep thinking, and the revelation of universal talk laws. He now wants to share these lessons with you. Universal talk laws are what you need to know and use in business and at home to have successful and effective conversations. Kenja Dixon shares his wisdom, action plans, and wealth. Each book comes with a chance to win $10,000. Find Universal Talk Laws at kenjadixon.com.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
Welcome back. We're talking cannabis marketing with Kendra Losi of Moda Marketing and Ronnie Stetter of Righteous Relations. Before we get back to that discussion, I just want to remind everyone about our podcast holiday listener contest for the first time ever. If you listen to AMA San Diego podcast going back to January 1 of last year and contribute meaningful comments on the posts, you can be entered into a drawing to win your chance to host a podcast here on WS Radio, or win free tickets to, or one free ticket to our next Art of Marketing coming up in spring of 2018. So once again, please check out the website, find the podcast post labeled "Why Should I Podcast?" and find details there. So returning to our discussion, we were just kind of touching in the last segment on marketing of cannabis on the web. I want to have a wider discussion about digital channels and audiences for cannabis marketing. So Kendra, let me start with you on this one, if I can. We've talked about adult use cannabis, right? So what implications does that have for marketing of cannabis via digital channels, right? Who can we talk to? What channels can we use?
So that's actually where the federal law comes in, because digital is, while you can geo-target, there's a lot more restrictions. And so companies like Google and Facebook, which includes Instagram, are very specific in holding to the federal law. So, for example, for the most part, you can't do paid search ads on Google. I've talked to many people who are trying to educate about cannabis and had their Facebook pages shut down. So, for example, a client I've been working with they provide a platform to help guide, basically right now, women who have insomnia. They help guide them through the process of understanding what different treatment options there are, what potential dosing they can do, and then help them track that. They're not touching the plant. They're not selling anything, and their Facebook page was shut down. Because they were educating about cannabis.
And that's just an organic type reach, right?
Absolutely,
not paid.
Completely organic.
Yeah.
And so working and talking to companies like them, there's just no rhyme or reason in terms of how Facebook, specifically Facebook, is implementing their rules. So people can try, sometimes you can get boosted ads or boosted posts put through, but other times not. And there's no systematic way that that's been happening.
Mm-hmm. And then in terms of like websites, for example, right? Are there any limitations around what these companies can say on websites and what who can find those websites and so forth?
So it goes back to the advertising and what you can and can't say, and keeping everything consistent. So with the laws. And Ronnie can speak this a little bit more too, but you can use your website and you can use SEO and you can use content marketing and really differentiate your brand. But at the same time, what you say, you can't make health claims, you can't do all of these other things that still adhere to the law within your state. And then even if you have your website, which also, by the way, you have to have, if you're selling, you have to have the 21 and up verification, the same as alcohol. Mm-hmm. And so you have to have the verification before people enter the site. And then once they're in the site, you have the regulations in terms of, where you can sell, because you can only sell within your state. And it just falls into where in the supply chain and what you're offering is where your limitations may or may not be in terms of what you can say on your site.
So there seems to be like a ton of challenges online for marketing for the cannabis industry. Are people shying away from that because of these challenges? Are they, sticking to more of the traditional media route and that type of customer reach, or are we seeing it changing for the better, for the worse? What do you guys think?
I always look at it from a grassroots angle just because that's the kind of people that I work with. But I noticed people just using a lot of organic, strategy where they go to events and they have a strong social media presence. They're making everybody at the event follow them. They're giving away a sample of some kind and people are following the page and kind of developing a really passionate fan base just of people who really like the product or really like using the service, like Leafly or Weed Maps. Those are famous websites that people use to find out, info about cannabis, and they're super famous. They have tons of traffic. So people really like certain things in the industry, and I think that makes it difficult maybe for new companies to brand themselves out from what's already there, because we've had medical cannabis for about 20 years in California. There's a lot of products out there, so not necessarily all of them are going to be legal after January, but everybody's really in competition for the same audiences.
And that's where it becomes really important to differentiate your brand, your dispensary, whatever you're selling when it comes to that, because there are so many, and they're basically, January 1st, creating not quite an even playing ground, because there's people who've had locations for a while, but it's really important to be able to say, put that stake in the ground, say, here's how I'm different, here's what I'm offering, because there are a lot of different options available.
So have you seen any successful differentiation tactics that people have been using? I mean, I know we talked a little bit in the break about how it's tough to get patents on cannabis-specific seeds or, different type of patents in that end. So I guess the question is, what tactics have you seen that have been successful in, especially for new companies, to breaking into the space and kind of competing with these companies that have been around for the last 20 years?
I think it depends on who you're targeting, right? So there's a very specific, we've touched on a little bit in terms of the target audience. And in the past, traditionally dispensaries focused on people that would take the time to go get a medical card and educate themselves. So you had to be very proactive in order to access cannabis in California. And with this shift, it's no longer, as a business, you're no longer relying on people to find you and seek you out, so you have to try and find them. And part of that is understanding who the target audience is and who you're really going after. So there's different dispensaries and there's different products that focus more on the health and wellness side. And I think that's really smart of them, because that's a growing demographic. When I talk to people, I kind of almost describe the target audience as almost the busy soccer mom, right? Or as a very growing population and someone that you'd almost want to target with a wellness standpoint. And then, you're the people who've been accessing and purchasing medical marijuana through all this time are still going to. You're not going to lose those people. You're just looking at targeting and expanding your audience.
How did the bud tenders come into play too? Do we see, I guess with like bartenders, for example, you have companies that want to have the tenders pour their products, stuff like that. Do you see kind of a rise of people, the tenders being more like the guru and companies kind of working with them to get their products pushed when the people come in the store? Or are we looking at more of just like packaging and kind of popping out on the shelf?
Yeah, so I had the privilege of being a bud tender at an illegal dispensary years ago, as well as a legal store. This year I worked at a Mankind Cooperative, which is actually right down the street from here. But it's very interesting. The bud tender, is almost like a sommelier. Am I saying that right? Because when you walk into the store, they don't always have your strain. And so you're like, okay, what's good? That person has been standing there all day, smelling these things, putting them on the shelves. They pretty much know, what the effects are going to be of more than half the products there. So if you don't really know what you're looking for, or if you do and you just kind of want to be surprised, that's the person who's really going to sell it. And on the vendor side, they are going in and training all the bud tenders on, the new edible. These are our cookies. These are the different flavors. These are the dosages, or drinks, or tinctures, or a patch for the skin, or whatever. So the brand's actually going in and educating the retailer, and even doing a demo of the product like inside the dispensary is not uncommon. And I actually really like that, because it's opened my eyes to a lot of things. And I know a lot about cannabis, but I can always learn more. And then I see new patients really digging it. And new customers are going to dig it when, somebody's there showing them how to use something.
And it also takes away that intimidation factor that people could have going in if they don't necessarily know what they want, but they know what they're issue is not that companies are saying what they can heal or what they can't heal, but from that sticking with that wellness perspective, there's different things that bud tenders are able to recommend if you say can't sleep at night or whatever, constant chronic pain or whatever the issue is. There are different things that the bud tenders can recommend and help ease people into it.
So that sounds like the bud tenders, right? The people in the retail stores will have quite a bit of influence. Are there other influencers in this space, right? Are there people who are kind of looked to as authorities that the brands are increasingly wanting to work with? You guys seen anything like that?
There are definitely social media influencers. A lot of times they'll get free tickets to events. I've been on that circuit for a while. I do try to influence where I can, though I'm just super busy with work stuff right now. So it's not like I'm just, using cannabis all constantly throughout the day. But I do try to share just because I have pain issues. I feel like other people are looking for pain relieving products. So I'm not telling them that this is going to treat their problem. I'm just sharing what I do. And that includes fitness. That includes, different things that I do. And all of that's part of the lifestyle, I think, that people are waking up to.
Okay, cool. So I want to talk briefly here before the break, and we'll get into it more after the break, but about marketing through traditional channels like outdoor and advertising and that type of thing. So Kendra, maybe give us a brief preview of what that looks like, and then we'll continue the discussion after the break.
Yeah, absolutely. There are laws that are being put into place also starting January 1 that dictates to some extent what that can look like, but we can certainly dive into this after the break.
And so we'll be right back with Kendra and Ronnie talking about cannabis marketing. Once again, don't forget about our podcast promotion contest. Check out the website for details. Thanks.
You take your smartphone almost everywhere you go. Now WSRadio.com can be there too. Search WS Radio in the Play Store for your Android devices or iTunes for Apple and download the WS Radio application. WSRadio.com on your phone and in your ear everywhere you go. Download the WS Radio application. Do it now. It's very easy. WSRadio.com.
On the internet, your business's reputation can be unjustly destroyed in an instant. Don't wait for that to happen. Building and marketing your 5-star reputation can increase your business by as much as 19%. Take control of your reputation and have the 5-star reputation you deserve with Reputation Marketing Solutions by DSI Development. Become the go-to company by visiting 5starrepmarketing.com. The number 5starrepmarketing.com.
Nowadays, internet devices are an integral part of your home. Everyone in your family has a smartphone, tablet, or a computer. Life is easier knowing that all your devices are secured and your family can surf the internet carefree. ESET Multi-Device Security Pack does just that. One license for all your devices. With ESET, it's simple to stay protected and save money. Enjoy safer technology with ESET Multi-Device Security Pack at ESET.com. That's ESET.com.
You may have heard me brag about Progressive Medical Center and just how much they've helped me with my health. And Dr. Goley, one thing that you have helped so many people with is migraines.
Unfortunately, there are millions and millions of Americans who are suffering with migraines and headaches, and they're debilitating because it affects the quality of their life, and they cannot function properly. At Progressive, we get the root cause because we understand that migraines could be caused by nutritional deficiencies, hormonal imbalances, believe it or not, delayed food sensitivities. And once we determine what the real reason is, we put a plan of action together with medication that we get them off slowly, and we put them on an all-natural approach, and the results are amazing.
Incredible. I mean, there's so many people that can say they don't live their lives with migraines anymore thanks to Progressive Medical Center.
And that's what's exciting and rewarding to us as physicians, because we help our patients take control of their health, and that's why they're living well.
Why don't you get a hold of Progressive Medical Center today? Don't live in pain. Don't have migraines anymore. Just go to their website, progressivemedicalcenter.com.
This is your life. Live it well.
Did you know the majority of radio listeners are between the ages of 35 and 54, have a household income of more than $100,000, are classified as executives or professionals, and share the show they listen to? Become part of the Peggy Smedley Show to reach listeners looking for information on connected devices through cost-effective radio commercials or segment sponsorships. Contact us at 630-933-0844 for more information or visit PeggySmedleyShow.com.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
We are back for our final segment talking about cannabis marketing with Kendra Losi of Moda Marketing and Ronnie Stetter of Righteous Relations. Kendra, you can find at modamarketing.com. Ronnie is at righteousrelations.com. Learn more about them there. Okay, so guys, we left off the last segment talking about marketing of cannabis through traditional channels. So let's pick it back up there. What kind of limitations are there on these brands as they look to promote their products in traditional channels?
So with the new law coming to effect in California, the limitation in terms of where you can put billboards or advertising is that it has to be 71.6% of the audience has to be over 21 in order to be able to place a billboard somewhere or put an ad in some sort of radio station or television show or wherever you're putting your advertisement. It has to have over 71.6% of the audience needs to be over 21.
Yeah. So from the standpoint of a billboard, there's really no such thing as a billboard that can assure that kind of audience, right?
That gets tricky. And the other thing is billboards can't look over into other states. So if your billboard's over on the edge of the Nevada-California border, you can't have it there. It can't be visible from another state.
Yeah. And I suppose putting your billboard in a school would not be a good idea.
1,000 feet away from schools and daycares and other places.
Okay. All right.
So who's at risk here? Is it if you put your ad up and the billboard company puts it over and it's facing the state line, are you going to get in trouble as a company, or is the billboard group going to be the ones that bear the brunt of that?
Potentially both.
Yeah, because the billboard company took the money for the payment, and most of the time when you put billboards in, you're the one selecting the location. So
yeah,
they're enabling each other.
How about publications, right? I mean, is there a publication that can be assured of hitting that audience correctly?
Well, that's what Sensi Magazine, we're trying to distribute, obviously, in compliant locations. Usually cannabis magazines are distributed at the dispensaries, but we're trying to hit a couple more spots because obviously we're a little bit more community oriented and we want to be outside of the dispensary. So we're looking at high-end health places. Kids aren't always going into like an acupuncturist, for example, or bars, hair salons, more places where people would pick up a magazine, I guess. So it's just strategizing about who your audience is again and where they're going to be.
And then there's publications like The Reader, right? So if you pick up The Reader right now, there's a ton of dispensary ads in the back. And right now, a good portion of those dispensaries are illegal. And so after January, they need to be shut down unless they get their license. So it's actually the Reader's going to lose potentially a lot of advertising dollars because they can no longer accept those ads.
Yeah. And can we imagine any other winners and losers from this big change coming January 1?
People who have event permits, there's actually an event permit in California. So that's a good place to distribute that kind of stuff and do your marketing strategies because the audience is right there. They're all cannabis consumers. They came for a reason. So people who have event permits are at a special advantage. And High Times that's one reason why they've stayed so relevant is because they do the High Times Cannabis Cup. And that event pulls thousands and thousands of people. And it's just a great marketing opportunity no matter who you are.
In addition, there's also platforms, Ronnie mentioned, Leafly and Weed Maps, that are very specific. There are apps and websites that are very specific for cannabis. And so a lot of dispensaries will advertise on them to be able to, when you do a search, a lot of people who use cannabis will use those as resources to find locations. And a lot of people will advertise on them right now. So it'll be interesting to see how that shifts when there's actually less competition paying for ad space, because right now some of them are, a big complaint is that they're very expensive.
Yeah, and they're actually likely to lose a bit too, because there's a lot of unlicensed businesses still up on the map of weed maps.
What about the medical industry? Are they slated, did you guys think, to win, to lose out of this legalization? Were they behind the push in the first place? Because I can imagine that
like healthcare,
the healthcare side, and the actual, the doctors and that whole industry that are kind of promoting the medical only view.
So when you look at, I'm trying to parse through that question a little bit, sorry. So there's the actual healthcare industry, and then there's like the Hello MDs where you can get your medical card recommendations. People are still going to get medical recommendations. I believe that number is probably going to go down. But it also, there's different laws still pertaining to medical. So for example, they won't be taxed quite as much when you purchase medical marijuana, but so dispensaries will still have, some dispensaries will still have both offerings in their stores, but it'll change a little bit.
At a different price point too.
Different tax rate, potentially.
The price point could be the same, but the tax rate will be different, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. And were the people that were promoting the medical lifestyle, were they on board with the change, or were they against it?
A lot of them still are not on board, but I think for the most part, I'm a patient and I supported Prop 64 and I support adult use just because we need to change the policy like yesterday. So yeah, from a political standpoint, I understand, but we do need just more access across the board. So I'm not limited to medical only.
How about radio? Can we expect to see ads for adult use on radio? Or will we be confronted with the same audience problem there, we think?
There's still the same audience problem, but there's still, I've heard dispensary ads on the radio. I don't think that's going to change, depending on the station, depending on the time the ads play, depending on the willingness of the station to accept cannabis ads. A lot of radio stations are held by large corporate offices that probably don't want to have any, kind of the same thing with Facebook or Google. They don't want to have any concerns about that. So it'll depend on what their attitude is in terms of whether or not they're willing to accept those ads.
Yeah, that kind of brings me to my next question, too, about companies that aren't specifically cannabis focused. How have you seen their willingness to accept the advertising money? Have you seen that grow, decrease? Are people worried about getting sued? Especially, I guess, more maybe mom and pop shops in the city as well. Are we seeing when you advertise, you have to basically convince them why you should take the money and run the advertisements, or are we seeing just no problem?
There's a couple people that are friendly to it. I think more people are friendly than one would realize, but then there's a lot of people who just don't want to deal with it. That's the part that surprises me about actually being in marijuana marketing, is that I've been in this for 7 years and keep expecting the opinions to just change right off the bat. And you see that is just not going to happen. There's so many, people who still oppose cannabis for whatever reason. So really it's just about ignoring those people. If you are in marketing in this space, just ignoring those people and going to the next person to find your target, because you cannot waste time with publications, channels, people who don't accept the message. You just can't, because it makes you just a very ineffective marketer, I think. So,
for example, when I was looking at the different email vendors, and I know this isn't a local question, but when I was looking at the different email vendors, MailChimp wanted to see every single campaign that was going to be sent out. That is completely inefficient to add that to the process that has to go through their legal review. So I skipped them, and companies like Constant Contact, when I talked to them 6 months ago, they said that you could use that cannabis was allowed on their platform, but you couldn't show pictures of the flower or the bud. And then when I talked to them 2 months ago, they were like, we had that rule. It was a long time ago. It was way back in February. You can do anything now. And they're based out of Colorado. So I thought it was interesting that even as far as in February, March, when I spoke to them, they had limitations, but now they've changed just in the 6 months, and cannabis has been legal in Colorado for 2 years now.
So that's Constant Contact then. Okay, but MailChimp still has, you think, greater restrictions, or at least last time you looked, they did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, guys. So we're down to our final 20 seconds. Why don't we wrap there? Thanks for joining us, Ronnie. I asked Kendra when we kicked off the show if she had brought samples for the host, and the answer was no. I assume the answer from you is no as well.
I'll throw you a gummy. I have some gummies if you want.
I'm just kidding. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time in This Week in Marketing.
Thank you.
Securing Our eCity Foundation is a nonprofit organization focused on cybersecurity awareness and education. Formed in 2011, their mission is to enable every San Diegan to live, work, and play safely in the cyber world. For more information, visit securingourecity.org or call 619-630-2444. securingourecity.org, 619-630-2444. securingourecity.org.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Has your business been appified? Are you tired of doing marketing that doesn't deliver results? Mobile apps build loyalty and quality retention. Your app from UPG Mobile puts your business on their mind and at their fingertips. UPG Mobile will give you a custom app highlighting how you are unique, targeting your message, and improving your open rates. Appify your business and amplify your presence with your customers at upgmobilemarketinggroup.com.
Looking to be a successful entrepreneur? The virtual assistant industry continues to be a top choice for those looking to start their own business. The problem can be how to become a virtual assistant. Many turn to the Bible of the VA industry, the book Virtual Assistant the Series, and it's the perfect guide for office managers, executive assistants, and other administrative professionals looking to make the transition from employee to successful business owner. Go to vatheseries.com to get your copy today.
Hi, Scale listener. This is David Finkel, co-host with Jeff Hoffman of Scale Your Business. I wanted to let you know that our newest book, Scale, was just released, and to encourage you to get your copy. The book will give you 7 proven principles to grow your business and get your life back. Scale will help you work less by getting your business to produce more. Get your copy online or at your local bookseller. For more information, visit us online at scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com.